This is Democracy Watch. Mark, the Supreme Court is right now hearing a case with massive implications across the country. If there is one Supreme Court case that everybody should be watching, it is this one. So can you explain what they've just heard oral arguments for?
Yeah, so earlier today, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments in the birthright citizenship case. Remember, these are cases challenging Donald Trump's effort to ignore the Constitution, ignore four different Supreme Court decisions that have said that the Constitution grants citizenship to anyone born in the United States, and instead say that because Donald Trump doesn't believe that being born in the United States is enough to be a citizenship, that would now be the law. And the Supreme Court took this case primarily to resolve kind of an issue adjacent to the merits, and that is whether or not each of these individuals needs to bring their own lawsuit, or whether, as we saw in this case and have seen recently in others, courts can issue nationwide injunctions. So in other words,
and so that's been a big focus for this administration, because this administration is basically saying that they have gone on a scorched earth campaign against judges who, via their rulings, are able to prevent the Trump administration from issuing these unconstitutional decrees. But the administration is saying that one single judge in one court somewhere can't issue nationwide injunctions. And so this is the issue that the Supreme Court is focusing on right now.
correct. And so, taken to its logical extreme, what the government's position is that every individual who wants to get their job back in the federal government, if it was taken away illegally, has to file their own lawsuit. That, in other words, you can't just file one lawsuit and have there be a outcome that affects the entire federal government. So that's essentially what this fight is about. But again, in the context of the birthright citizenship issue. And so, look, if you were to just go and open up your dictionary and look up the word chutzpah, there'd be a picture of the Trump administration, because it is claiming that it is the victim of judge shopping, that people are going to liberal judges and picking a liberal judge and then getting an order. Now, I don't know where these Republicans have been in the last, say, 4 to 14 to 15 years, when Republicans have been doing this routinely, getting these nationwide injunctions after forum shopping to a particular judge. But you should know, Brian, this morning, the government, the Trump administration, very worried about that practice.
Well, let's talk about that practice right now. Why isn't it well-founded that a judge can say, okay, the administration is doing something unconstitutional, we are going to prevent them from being able to do that in all analogous cases? Like, yes, they have somebody right in front of them who may have been harmed by whatever it is Trump did. Let's say, as it relates to birthright citizenship, there is a certain, there's a specific person who might be harmed. But if there's if that case can relate to a broader swath of people, why in the world wouldn't we want a specific case to be able to apply to other people who have been dealt the same harm by this administration?
Yeah. So, I mean, the answer for the Trump administration, came out early in the argument when the Solicitor General said that they have suffered 40 nationwide injunctions. Okay.
Well, but that's not an issue with nationwide injunctions. That's an issue because they keep doing illegal things that should apply to the entire nation.
That's right. I mean, their argument is essentially like, look, I mean, it really sucks when we do illegal things and it gets blocked everywhere. Can't we just have it that it gets blocked just in one place so we can keep doing illegal stuff elsewhere?
I mean, exactly. And so to the broader question, then, is there some legal basis that they're actually correct about this not being able to apply to other places?
Look, I think the best argument that they could make is as follows. Number one, they would say that, it shouldn't be allowed that plaintiffs choose a favorable judge in one part of the country and then get a ruling that binds everyone. The second thing they'd say is that there is actually a benefit to the judicial system letting percolate up various cases on the same topic, because you'll actually get different judges having different opinions, and that will sharpen the issue so that when they go to the Supreme Court, there'll be more of a full airing of the issues. Now, here is the reason why that doesn't hold any water. First of all, it doesn't hold any water in a case like this, where some of the justices this morning pointed out that what it will incentivize is the Trump administration to do illegal things and then not appeal. Because, of course, the cases can never go up and become broader precedent. They can never get to the Supreme Court if the Trump administration just says, look, if we lose an individual district court case, we will just not appeal that case so that it never becomes broader precedent, right? So that
Right.
literally it will never get resolved at higher courts. That's one problem. The second is that in some measure, what the Trump administration is complaining about, which I think is legitimate, is the idea of forum shopping, that you shouldn't be able to just pick the judge of your choice. But of course, and you and I have done previous videos on this, it has
They
been
do it.
Democrats who have been trying to remedy that in a variety
Yeah.
of ways, and it is being blocked by Republicans in Congress who don't want to remedy this forum shopping. And then finally, the last point I'd make is that even the argument about forum shopping is really kind of not well founded, because the majority of the cases that the Trump administration is losing, they're losing in Washington D.C., which has a variety of judges. You have Democratic judges, you have Republican appointed judges, and you have a Court of Appeals that has a mixture of both, and you have a random assignment system. So the fact is, what Trump is upset about is that he does really illegal things and then he loses before a variety of judges. And what he'd like to be able to do is just take those losses and continue his unconstitutional policies.
Right. And I would also add on this idea that they're looking for these cases to percolate up to the Supreme Court, notwithstanding the fact that they're not appealing the ones they lose expressly so that they don't percolate up to the Supreme Court. But even when there are Supreme Court decisions, Trump administration defies those too. So they're not listening. They're not looking to listen to any rulings that don't comport with their political ideology. They are only looking to just find some judge somewhere, a la Judge Cannon, who will just kind of defer completely to this White House.
That's a really smart point, and it actually was one that came up in the oral argument today. And there was actually an extended discussion of this, because I think it was Judge Jackson was trying to say to the Solicitor General, look, are you willing to commit that if you lose on appeal in the Second Circuit, you will accept that, at least for all of the people affected by this in the Second Circuit? And the Solicitor General said no. And then they said, well, what if it goes to the US Supreme Court and we say this is it? And he still hedged. Even with the Supreme Court order, he's like, well, there could be different facts and different circumstances and different complexity. I mean, he was bobbing and weaving basically to say there is nothing that the courts can do that will cause the administration to abide by a nationwide outcome other than a nationwide injunction. And of
Right.
course, that's the very thing that they fear in so many of these cases, because they keep losing.
And so knowing from the Solicitor General himself that this White House is not going to have any respect for these rulings that are being handed down, what incentive is there for this Supreme Court to further embolden the White House against the judicial system?
Look, I think that this is why it is possible that the Trump administration loses.
Yeah, I mean, it would be the Supreme Court basically neutering itself for a White House that is right now basically telling them that it's going to use that power to take away their own autonomy.
Yeah. Now, look, I will be candid with you. There were some conservative justices on the court who seemed like that's actually where they're going. But it was not clear that there is going to be a majority for that. I could see this actually being a pretty fractured opinion, because the inclination of many of the conservative justices was to find some way out of this problem of single judge nationwide injunctions, which, like I said, is actually something the Biden administration complained about, other administrations, because Republicans and conservatives have done this over and over again in a lot of cases. But I think that there is reticence that this White House and this Solicitor General was unwilling to commit that he would follow the precedent of courts of appeals, of the Supreme Court. So I think it's really hard to predict how it's going to come down. I suspect it'll be, like I said, a bit of a fractured opinion, in which there is some kind of balancing test that doesn't completely do away with nationwide injunctions, but makes them harder to get. And there'll be probably a little bit of like bring class action cases thrown into this, although that was a bit of a mess in the argument, since the conservatives on the court also tend not to like class action cases. So like there was a lot of smoke and mirrors going on by the Solicitor General's office. I thought Justice Kagan, Justice Sotomayor, and Justice Jackson did a really good job of illustrating that. And at times, like I said, at times you could see the frustration in some of the more conservative justices as well.
You know, if we're dealing with the birthright citizenship case, for example, and instead of being able to say, like, Trump signs an executive order trying to do away with this right that's afforded to everybody in the Constitution, which is the right to birthright citizenship. And all of a sudden you have, a baby born in Texas, and then there's that lawsuit, and another baby born in New Jersey, another baby born in Pennsylvania, another one born in California, and you have to keep doing these cases because now nationwide injunctions are no longer allowed in this thought experiment where, instead of having one nationwide injunction from a court who handed down a completely valid decision, now you have to relitigate this thing maybe tens of thousands of times over. I mean, are the courts even built to be able to handle something like that, where now every single individual court has to relitigate this issue unto itself?
They're not, but that's what the Trump administration is counting on. I mean, the courts are not built for it. The legal system's not built for it. And by the way, if the legal system was built for it, you know where those resources would come from? They come from large law firms, right? I mean, like the entities that could process not tens of thousands, but certainly thousands of cases at a time would be the very large law firms that Donald Trump now has
collected, that Donald Trump is now collecting so that they can't, so expressly so that they can't be on the offense against him.
Correct. That's exactly right. So, I mean, Donald Trump has neutered these large law firms. He has basically made them subservient to him. And so they're not going to bring these cases. And even the law firms that haven't made deals with Donald Trump, even the ones who have cowered on the sidelines and not been noticed, they're not going to bring these immigration cases because they don't want to be next up for Donald Trump. The most telling thing that has happened to me in the last month, and you and I talked about this on an earlier episode, was my appearance on 60 Minutes. I knew I'd be recording an episode on 60 Minutes about the large law firms that had capitulated and Donald Trump's administration and its war on the legal establishment. I was not prepared for Scott Pelley to begin by saying that I was the only lawyer targeted by Donald Trump willing to go on camera. And that just tells you how bad this is. Literally, they can't find lawyers willing to be on camera, criticizing Donald Trump. Could you imagine how few lawyers are going to be willing to step forward and have their law firms bring dozens or hundreds of cases on behalf of individuals in immigration proceedings?
Well, look, all of that underscores the importance of your voice being out there in the ecosystem. A quick note to our viewers here. Mark has launched a YouTube channel. Highly recommend that you, if you are not yet subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to Democracy Docket. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. His voice is exactly the kind of voice that we should be lifting up, especially in light of the fact that there are so few people in the same space that Mark is in who are actually willing to take on this fight in the way that he has. So again, I'll put the link right here on the screen, also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Mark Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.